Hi, I'm David Hackoff. I'm the executive director of NewFest, New York's leading LGBTQ film and media organization. And I'm really thrilled to welcome you tonight to this live stream with the director and star slash producer of the film, The Surrogate. A little bit about NewFest before we dive in. NewFest was founded in 1988. We exist to provide a platform for queer stories and queer storytellers. And during the pandemic, we have made a pivot to virtual. We have embraced the virtual world. And particularly this month for Pride, we've got a whole host of events that we're doing over the next couple weeks. So I encourage you to check out our website and to follow us on social media to see everything that we've got going on. I want to call out a couple of them right now. One is on Tuesday night, we'll be doing the virtual New York City premiere of a film called Peer Kids, directed by Elegance Bratton. And we'll have a conversation between Elegance and Chester, the film's producer. And that film is, you can RSVP for that now on our website, and will be available to stream starting on Sunday. Also, we're going to be doing a family movie night next week in partnership with Trinity Church, Department of Education, and New York City Unity Project. We'll be screening the film Hearts Beat Loud, starring Nick Offerman and Kiersey Clemens. It's a really wonderful film. You can watch it if you're a parent. You can watch it if you're a child. You can watch it if you ever were a child. If you think about wanting to be a parent, if you don't think about it, you can just watch it. It's really good. All right, so tonight we're going to have this conversation. It's going to be moderated by Stephen Winter, who is actually a NewFest alum. He is a NewFest award winner, actually, for his film Chocolate Babies. I love this film, and I'm so glad that we're getting to host this conversation. I think it is an incredibly thoughtful and thought-provoking and smart exploration of race and privilege and parenthood and friendship and growing up and responsibility. And I just think it's a really special film. So hopefully many of you had a chance to watch it. If you have not had a chance to watch it, you can rent it through NewFest Now on our website. And I encourage you to see it, and you'll certainly want to watch it after you watch this conversation. Tonight, joining us, we have the film's director, who's another NewFest alum, Jeremy Hersh. We also have the lead actress and co-producer, Jasmine Batchelor, who is actually making her debut screen appearance in this film, and she is astounding. She is clearly a talent to watch, and she really, I think, embraces and gives so many dimensions to a really complicated woman. So I'm excited to hear this conversation. Before we kick things off with Stephen and Jeremy and Jasmine, let's take a look at the trailer for The Surrogate.
You guys?
I'm a surrogate for my two best friends.
That's really cool. I could never do that.
Oh, people say that all the time. And I'm like, no, I think you could.
Alex just told us the good news. Mazel tov.
Hey, how's Nate? Jess is only attracted to emotionally unavailable men. If it's a girl, we were thinking of calling her Sarah.
What do you think?
So they're not paying you?
No, that'd be weird.
And they're gonna be great dads.
The test came back positive for Down syndrome.
Nothing feels like the right decision.
Look, I know that this is not what you planned for.
I mean, having a kid with Down syndrome, it requires a lot.
Do you guys have any questions?
I guess you guys could just tell us what you wish you knew before.
Is everything okay?
So, well, we've been talking, and
I don't know if I'm having this child.
We can do this.
If you sacrifice your work, you will regret it. Mom, I'm not happy there. I want you to actually think about this choice.
Jess, it's still me. We deserve to try and have a kid who's
Perfect.
Hi, everyone. Is it?
Hello, hello. Are we all here? I think we're all here. Well, welcome Jasmine Batchelor, star producer, and Jeremy Hersh, writer and director. I've got to say, first, Jasmine, well done. That was a performance. Like
Thank you.
There, that was amazing. What a meaty role to get into. And Jeremy, also well done. Not only your movie, you're welcome. Thank you. Like most movies, you're lucky if they have like 2 or 3 things going on. You have so many things going on in this film, and they're all on the surface and under the surface. Like it's a coming of age story. It's about race, and it's about gender, and it's about rights, and it's about oppression, and it's about who gets to choose what, where, and when. It's so many things. So I guess I want to first ask you, Jeremy, where did all this come from? And then take it to Jasmine and ask, when you first got a hold of this, what were your thoughts of how you're going to attack this character? So, Jeremy, please.
Well, first, I just want to say thank you to NewFest and to you, Stephen, for doing this. To David, to Nick, and to Radhika. And you, Stephen, I'm not sure to what extent you remember this, but you played an important role in me developing this into a script. Do you remember this? Where you know, I think I had started writing the first draft of it, and we were hanging out, and you were like, yeah, like pitch it to me, tell me the story, and you were like listening, and I think you said like, you know, how much time elapses during the bulk of the story, and I said, well, you know, we kind of follow her through 6 months or something like that. And you were like, no, it should be in one day if possible. And it's not, obviously, but you really helped me get it down to as tight of a window of time as possible. And I think that was huge. I think that made a night and day difference in terms of it.
Good.
Wait, sorry, what was your question again? Sorry.
Why, how, where, when did all this come to you? Like, it's not just enough that it's about 2 best friends who are now discovering they don't know each other as well as they thought they did. It's not only about interracial gay relationships and class. It's also about finding humanity in all people. And it's about a Black woman, a young lady, who the likes of which I don't think I've ever seen on the screen quite this way before. So where did it all come from? How did you get into this story?
Well, I wanted forever, I think, to make something about the relationship between a straight woman and a gay man. And I think it's partly because, you know, I grew up seeing that relationship. That was like the first queer representation I ever saw on TV, often in a really one-dimensional way. So I wanted to kind of do my version of that, and get into it, show dimension, and also kind of critique some of the dynamics that we see in those tropes, but also that we see play out in real life. And then I also just kind of had the experience of coming to New York for college when I was 18 and expecting to find this liberal paradise, and in some way finding that people, you know, were progressive, and in a lot of ways finding that they were not, and that disability was a huge blind spot, and just in like, not just in conversations, but in how New York is set up physically. So that, and then I don't remember exactly, but once I had the kind of the core idea for it, then I started to research it. And then that's when you find out the stuff of, I mean, of like class, you know, has a huge impact on the issue of surrogacy and on the issue of prenatal testing and all this stuff. Like, I mean, class is a part of everything. And then, yeah, like kind of just looking at this, the question of eugenics, then I didn't like focus group it into existence. I kind of just like, thought of things like intuitively. But then I think looking back, I do think the reason why initially it was always clear to me that she was going to be a Black woman is because of the history of eugenics in America with Black women. And then also going back to like these tropes and how in a situation where I wanted to look at the ways in which gay men are asking too much of a woman, that thematically was richer in that, and just the emotional labor that Jess goes through, and yeah.
Great. And you also put, because one character is Jewish, and that plays a part in certain conversations.
Yeah, that's another like thing about the relationship to eugenics. These are both people that when they're debating something about eugenics, it's not only theoretical to them. They have a tangible, yeah.
You're a ginger. You cast a ginger to play that part.
Yeah.
You kind of definitely put yourself as an avatar in there, which is something that filmmakers do, which I really admire. Jasmine, when did you get involved in this production? And when you read the part, what were your thoughts about how you could attend to this matter? Like this really interesting, and what did you make of her? Actually, that's the first question. What did you make of this film?
Well, I got this from Erica, who is a wonderful casting director, Erica Hart, who I'd met through ABC. And I got it in 2017. And I read the script. It was right before Thanksgiving, I think. And I was like, I've never seen anything on paper that is this multidimensional, and I've never seen a Black woman on script that had this kind of inner life, the kind of inner life that I was like trained to create and investigate in school through like traditional white text, like through like things like Chekhov and Shakespeare, and you see all of that, but you rarely get to see contemporary characters for Black women that are this incredible. And I was like, oh, I recognize myself. I recognize the worst parts of myself and the best parts of myself. And I don't know how I get in this. I don't know how I get past this initial room, but I have to. I just want to be a part of this. So yeah, that script held up a mirror in a very, very interesting and singular way. So I had to do it.
Okay. And what, and not to get personal, because you said it hit hard with you. Like I remember feelings too. Like she's so eager to please.
Yeah.
It's so like that one line that struck me from the first time I read the script to watching it yesterday is, "Oh, I'm just the vessel."
Oh yeah.
And I like, is she crazy? Is she just disconnected from feelings? What do these boys make of that statement? Like the whole thing is so odd, but very tangible and felt very realistic to like the insecurities that you can feel as a Black person moving through white space or white space.
Yes. I mean, we're talking about it now, right? We're in the middle of this amazing movement, and also in the middle of a pandemic, so it's a lot. But I mean, I identified a part of this thing that drew me to this is that she is a Black woman in majority white spaces for most of this film. Yeah. And as someone who's gone to, we call them PWIs, predominantly white institutions for most of my life, and I think about every school I've ever been to, I've always been the minority. And every show I've ever been in, with the exception of the last two, I've always been the minority. So there is that sense of needing to fit in, or not shake the table too much, or not make waves, so that you can continue to survive in the industry. And so that's something that I really keyed into. It's like, maybe she doesn't realize that it's a survival tactic, but making everyone comfortable around her is so that she can survive, which is so interesting. Because when I watch the film now, I'm annoyed. I'm like low-key annoyed with her. I'm like, will you just stand up for yourself? Will you just say, yes, I am a part of this. No, I don't want to do that emotional work for you. But she's not in a place to do that. And a lot of us at different points in our life, we're not. So I think it's really incredible to see that on film.
Yeah. So Jeremy, when you brought, once this thing got from your head to the page, and then it got to a place 2017 up through the time that you shot, once you sat down with your team, your actors, how did you cue them in to what your tone was, like what you wanted them to be? Because it seemed like everybody, another great thing about the movie is that everybody in the movie is in the same movie. Like all the performances completely modulated, and the mood is completely modulated. And as a fellow filmmaker, I'm amazed at how you tied yourself to one shots and kept tension going. It's such a risky thing to do. You know, in terms of like, a lot of times you get coverage, you get a medium shot, close up, you get the reversal, cut, back and forth. You've got scenes that keep going. And your DP made the colors and the mood just were perfect. And the tension of the performances in the script was exquisitely calibrated. So how did you get those people? How did you get your actors and work with Jasmine to bring that stuff to bear so well?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of it was like done in the casting process, where Erica Hart and I, we chose people who we felt like had similar sensibilities to us, I guess. And we felt, and people who seemed like they got what we were trying to do with the script. And like part of what I loved about Jasmine right away was that she was funny. So that's something that like is not necessarily like in every, it's not in every scene in the movie, but it's in the moments of humor are important to me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I really believe the part of what I love about doing long takes, and even in the scenes that I was saying this to you earlier, that like even in the scenes where you as a viewer don't see it as a single take, we still shot it kind of as if. A major reason why I like to do that is to give the actor as much control as possible. All of the actors, and so they're controlling the pacing, yeah, I think like when you give smart people as much responsibility as possible, then that's like when you get the best out of them. And I just kind of getting out of their way as much as possible, I guess. I don't know. Do you think that's accurate, Jasmine? Well, like, yeah. Do you have any?
Yeah, it felt very much like we were filming a play, because I remember that one day that we were in that Airbnb filming the confrontation scene. We shot that, my body and brain wants to say 57 times, but it's probably somewhere around like, 24 takes or something like that. I don't know, but it was a long day. And we did that scene in different variations over and over and over again in one shot. We went all the way through it. And I feel like it was like a rehearsal. Like when you're just trying to get to the meat of something, you can't stop in the middle of that conversation. If anyone's seen the film, it would be difficult to stop in the middle of that, because it's scored in such a way that your body starts to ramp up, and then cutting that down kind of is a disservice to the storytelling and the relationship happening. So we felt, and I mean, I can't speak for everyone else, but I felt very lucky to just be living the experience, and then to wipe the slate clean and come back. Yeah, it was very familiar. It didn't feel like, okay, now it's Chris's coverage, so like I'm only doing this part, or like now it's Sullivan's coverage, so I'm only doing this part. Like we did the whole of the scene for everyone's coverage, so that it really brought out the best in everyone's performance, which is, you know, those guys are incredible. I mean, they're incredible. Also, Mia Coffey Henry is amazing. Is a trooper. She's fantastic. Yeah, she's our DP.
Who does she play?
She's the DP.
Yes, the DP is fantastic. Which scene did you do 24 times? Which confrontation?
Yeah, you could say
in their apartment, like Richard Dawkins.
That one?
The eugenics scene, yeah.
Maybe 18.
How many times?
I don't know.
Yeah, come on, including rehearsal. I mean, but we were also rehearsing it in the lunch because those lines it's like a play. You know, it's very dense. And so we just wanted to make sure that we knew the points, we got the beats. And so even when we weren't in, you know, taping, we were working with each other, trying to make sure that we, you know, knew the score, and that we could surprise each other.
Wow. Which take did you use? Do you remember?
Well, so that's a scene that's very much constructed in the edit, it turns out. And like,
it feels like a take, but it's not. It feels like one shot, but it's not.
I mean, it's a testament to our editor, Cecilia Delgado, is like, she's the only editor I've ever worked with, the only editor I ever want to work with. And she's fucking amazing. Wonderful. So that's because in that scene, there's actually quite a bit of cutting, but apparently, I mean, I'm glad that I think that it's, and part of the cutting actually was like, there's a little bit of dialogue that was cut out. There's actually quite a bit of constructing there, but like it was great to be working with all of this material. We had an incredible amount of usable raw material that was all good, and it was really just a question about what direction do we want to go with. And in fact, like that the whole like that scene used to come
at a different point in the script, right?
In the film. Yeah. I have a friend named Noah Hutton who he gave a note in the edit process pretty early on that like initially seemed like, oh, that's so drastic that it won't work to restructure the scenes. And Cecilia tried it and it worked totally. So that's
it's another testament to the mesmerizing quality the film has on its entire level, is that it feels like it's just sort of happening.
Thank you, Stephen.
Oh, you're welcome. Question for you. There was, so the beginning of the movie, when we're getting the setup, we feel very much on the side of the character of Jasmine. I'm sorry, I forget her name.
Jess.
Yeah.
So we're on Jess's side, we're in her head, and then they get the news, and it's devastating, and they start to sit with it. And then there is that dinner scene where they serve the pasta and the vegetables. And it seems all of a sudden, and she starts saying chirpy things like, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. And it's
so annoying.
It's the point of view of the guys of like, oh my God, she's not getting it. Like this is like, it's so much tension, and it feels like ever so slightly, at least to me, the perspective started to shift, and I started to see like, oh, we're going to start seeing this in all these different directions. And then when the great Miss Tanya Pinkins shows up, and I want Jasmine, tell me about what it was like doing scenes with her. We start to feel like this is another person whose perspective we're now getting a full sense of. It's like everybody gets to star in the movie at a certain point. So what was it like? What was it like, Jasmine, to work with Ms. Pinkins?
As my mother, I mean, it's kind of perfect casting. I got to give it to Jeremy and Erica. I mean, Tanya is a force, and so is Karen. And my mother's name in the movie is Karen. And so she just carries this sense of you have to respect what she says, even if you disagree with it. I mean, Karen is very smart. She's very driven, and she's, you know, gotten to where she is because she is pragmatic, and she also does care a great deal about Jess. And my own mother is a lot like that. So, you know, getting to work opposite Tanya in all of her power in that kind of role is like, oh yeah, this is perfect. And there's not that there's like a lot of acting normally, but I was like, no, this is this makes so much sense. I don't have to reach deep down for this. There is this, woman in front of me with all this power, and I'm in this position in this script, and it's there, Shout out to Erica. She did a wonderful job. And you, Jeremy, casting.
A question for both of you. Do you think that after the events of the film, that they become friends again?
Jeremy, I will let you answer that one first.
No, you.
Me? So my Capricorn heart wants to say no, not for a few years. Because a grudge is a grudge. And I think that Jess is an earth sign with a lot of like air sign qualities, so I think that she is very stubborn, and I think she's been deeply wounded. And I think also in the course of what happens in the movie and her friendship, she starts to realize that it's not actually a friendship based on like a mutual sharing, that she's always been giving and giving and giving, and also has been very selfish, So those things have to be worked out. And I think with most adults, that takes some time.
Yeah.
So I think maybe they'll come around, like in a few years. Jeremy and I were talking about this. I think sometime in the film when we were shooting it, I was like, I feel like in a few years, they'll see each other at a party and be like, hey, how are you? How's everything going? And then maybe meet up for coffee or something. But I don't think that it's I don't think they ever get back to the Josh and Jeff that, we see at the top of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel the same. I think that like there is like almost this familial thing where they can never I think eventually they will be back in touch, and that they know so many people in common. But I don't think she's ever gonna like really let them in ever again. I mean, which I think is good for her own mental health.
Yeah, they're kind of awful. I'm joking. Well, the film does give you a lot. One of the wonderful things about it is it gives you a lot of leeway to like, whose team are you on? And a lot of times in movies, like I'm on like the Twilight, like I'm on Team Werewolf or I'm on Team other people. There are no real teams that you set up. You don't give us a right and a wrong or a yes and a no. I wasn't sure by the end if their drive to have a child in the first place was noble or selfish. I couldn't figure it out. And it started to make me question on why I would even demand that kind of an answer, and you also, before we go to audience questions, I'm excited to hear what they might be. What was your relationship to you have these wonderful scenes with the children, especially Leon, of course. What was your relationship in bringing those kids into the story in real life?
Well, I, in my research process, started going to this community center called Gigi's Playhouse in Harlem. And so I met all those families and I became a volunteer there. They started kind of a new program of doing these meetups in Brooklyn, and they needed help with that. So yeah, I've spent a lot of time at that place with those people, became friends with Leon's parents, and I'm kind of like his like assistant nanny, like he has like a main nanny, and then when she's not available, I fill in. So yeah, I've gotten to know them pretty well. Yeah, and so yeah, is that what you meant? Like my relationship to those?
Yeah, like how did that come about?
Yeah, and then it was like the way we did it was instead of like trying to stage a like fake class for these kids, we actually just tried to like actually be teaching them songs and doing everything and then filming it documentary style. So we had 2 cameras for that day, and then just with Leon, like he improvised the majority of his dialogue, and we just kind of gave him like the situation, and then he just you know, kind of, you know, played within it. And like he and Jasmine, they hadn't spent a ton of time together before we shot, but they had met and instantly like had chemistry just as people.
I love him.
So what you're seeing there is actually real. And then also that this is like another thing in terms of the way we conceived of the cinematography, was, you know, the reason why it's handheld is to be able to adjust in the moment. So, you know, when he gets up from the table during that like brunch scene, the camera, the hope is always like the camera can follow so that you're not limiting. And then, yeah, the production design is also, you know, 3D, 360. So yeah, the idea was to kind of just, yeah, like, again, like I've been saying, like have him be kind of in charge.
Yeah.
As is the case with all actors.
Oh, the kid was good, and Jasmine, your chemistry with them was great, as it was with
I
all.
love him.
There was another scene I want to compliment you on. There's a scene early on that establishes that your work sucks. You're on the computer, and a boss lady comes over and looks over your work and says, well, it's good, except for the color and the lines and the design and the font and the subject matter and everything.
He hates it. Yeah.
The way you handled that was like, because your character comes off as like bursting of creativity, bursting of drive, really excited about what they're doing, overqualified for the position that they're in. And the way that somebody can just put somebody down and you have to hold the mask, like you really handled that well.
Well, you know, I am a Black woman in America, so I have been there before.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. All right, so let's look to the audience for some questions. They should pop up on the screen, perhaps. If anyone has any questions, please give them up. So do you think if the baby had been born without Down syndrome, the arrangement between the three of them would have worked out? It's an excellent question. What are your thoughts on that?
Jasmine?
Oh, I'm just going to be like, Jeremy, you wrote it. So
I really don't know.
I don't know. A part of me thinks something had to give at some point. You know, if you witness an unhealthy friendship, like something's going to happen eventually. So I don't know. Maybe the arrangement would have worked out, but something else would have, you know, happened down the line. I just feel like it's kind of like, what's that movie? Final Destination or something, that franchise where it's like you can't escape.
They'll get their heads
big reference.
Such a random reference, but I feel like it's inevitable, you know? So, yeah.
Well, yeah, I think that Jess definitely doesn't seem like she has really thought through what pregnancy does to a person, and neither had the guys. So by the 6th month, I'm sure all kinds of stuff will be popping off. But Jeremy, you have no thoughts on this?
No, I think Jasmine hit it on the head. Yeah, I think that like it could have easily gone fine, but yeah, there would have always been something simmering underneath the surface.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's kind of like that. Not to ruin Insecure for anyone, I'm so sorry ahead of time. If I am, you can just mute me right now before I say this. But like, we knew for seasons, a couple seasons, like, or maybe just from the beginning of this season, I don't know, that something was going on with Molly and Issa, you know? And even if nothing had, you know, lit the match, like something was going to happen eventually, because you can't have those same kind of destructive behaviors in a friendship or any relationship without something happening, especially if you have one person giving and giving and giving and the other person being like, okay, that's your role. Whether it's Jess in one situation or Josh trying to be as, you know, as benevolent and kind as he could in the receiving of like her endless optimism, you know, and her inability to, or refusal to read the room, you know, like there's always something. There's always something.
There's another dynamic going on in the movie between Jess and the Black husband.
Oh, Sullivan Jones, yeah.
It's like usually when the best friends are best friends, and then one of them gets married, that the partner is accepted, but they're always like, I'm giving my best friend to you kind of dynamic happening. And they're both Black, but they're very frosty with each other, it seems. They don't seem to have a lot in common. It almost seems sometimes like the husband doesn't respect Jess.
Well, I mean, you know what's so funny is that off screen, Sullivan and I would like rap together or like do silly things. Like we had so much fun. And then on screen, it's like ice.
Actors are amazing. You would never know that. They don't even rehearse together. They don't like each other. Get into the question. Let's get it on the screen.
Wait, one other thing. Can I say one other thing about that?
Of course.
It's interesting, like, to think, because I also just wonder whether, like, in situations that I've read about, I've heard some people say, you know, even in a situation where, like, a relative or a friend was a surrogate, they're glad that they insisted to pay her something because, like, yeah, there's a sense that you can never like thank someone enough for this, and because of course you actually can't, and the money actually can't answer that either, but that what I've read talks about how it's like psychologically easier for the intended parents who give the money than it is in terms of the surrogate. So it's like the guilt that they feel for having like asked this is mitigated by that. So I think it's just an interesting thing where, you know, I hate that surrogacy in like the all of the like channels that you're supposed to do it through, your it's expensive and it's limited to really only the extremely wealthy, and yet I also think that surrogates should be paid, so that it's a complicated thing. And now, as of like a few weeks ago, it is now legal to pay for surrogacy in New York.
It was illegal before.
Yeah, you had to do it altruistically, so people would just, you know, you could use someone in Connecticut. There was tri-state places where the laws were different.
Yeah, you give it to the building fund.
Right.
Okay, let's get another audience question then. Did you always know how the movie would end? That's a really good question, because half the time, and this is no shade, half the time filmmakers do not know how the movie is going to end until they're ready to end it. Right. Tell us, Jeremy, what was your process?
Yeah, I did. I always knew that that this is where I kind of wanted her to end up, and that so both in the sense of her gaining agency, and in the sense of her final choice, and that is partly just because I never wanted to make something that could possibly be in any way interpreted as being anti-choice or pro-life. And like in general, I try to not be didactic, but that's actually something that I am okay with being didactic about. So yeah, I knew that it was important to me that, and I always like envisioned it being kind of discussed like with her sister in this way where it's kind of neutral and like practical, and it's like, do you know what I mean? Like that it's not like that aspect of it is not like a dramatic thing.
Yes, and the revelation that she had an abortion prior to this at age 23. She seems to be about 30 at this point. And her mother didn't know about it because it wasn't an issue that she needed to share with her. She was able to deal with it on her own, and with whatever support system she had already as a young woman, was also a very good, not quite didactic, but certainly pointed way of dealing with the issue. Another question is coming up. And again, Jasmine, well done on everything. Like, my God. This is going through my head again, and I'm like, that particular scene, I'm like, damn, she's good. All right. What was the most surprising thing you learned about yourself through working on this film? Jasmine, you go first. Because you said already that when you read it on the page, it was like, ooh, this thing is hitting some buttons. So what did you learn about yourself on the making of this film? Surprisingly.
I learned this, yes, surprisingly. I mean, everything was kind of a surprise that I learned, but I learned that I learned, honestly, kind of a bit of the same thing that Jeff learns for this film, is that there is power in no, and there is power in taking up space and setting a boundary for yourself. It doesn't mean that other people won't like you or that you'll like lose anything by being like, hi, I'm in this room and I deserve to be here. My voice is this, and this is my opinion. And you can be respectful with it, but they also should respect your boundaries, which is something that's so simple, right? It seems like it should be just like ABC 1, 2, 3, you know it. Yeah. But as somebody who is marginalized, you know, like it is a difficult thing to cement. Like, you know it, but you have to know it. And I think in playing this character, I was like, oh no, I need to know this, because I feel what it does to constantly try to like people please. I feel it like in my body, and it closes everything up, and I can't live like this. Like, this character is living like this, and therefore I cannot do that. And I also learned that I gotta adjust how I argue with people, because when Jeff is mad at them at the house in Connecticut, yes. Oh, I was like, so this is unhealthy, and like, and I think that I'm coming from a place of lots, but this is cruel. So, you know, that she's doing this in this moment. This is a beautiful tool to use in this moment for this scene. And, you know, like, this is going well. This is exactly the opposite of everything we've seen from her. But note to self, never do this in real life, because this is horrible.
Ooh. Note to self. All right, Jeremy Hersh, what surprised you about this thing that you did?
This is a tough one, because I feel like I learned so many different things and things about filmmaking. But I guess what's standing out to me is like the realization, or starting early on in the research process, of how ignorant I was about Down syndrome, and just ableism is just another one of those things that once you see it, you start to realize that it's part of everything, and that is something that you have to deprogram in your own mind. So I think that that's a huge thing for me, that like, again, was a lot of that happened early on in the process, but then it continued throughout. Yeah, and still it's still a process of deprogramming that I'm in.
I love the way your mind works. Okay, I think we got one more audience question. Let's see what it is. How often did you work together on the script, both on and off set, and shared experiences or stories together? Did you share experiences or stories together that then impose itself on the script? Did anything from your real life and collaboration get into the character of the scenes?
Jeremy?
Yeah, we didn't do much actual like rehearsal ever of like, let's do the scenes and then I'll give you notes. Like but we did a lot of just talking, getting to know each other, and revealing stories about ourselves that I don't know if there's a lot of like little things that of myself that are the ton of things that are in the film that are all the different characters are kind of a part of me is in them. But yeah, so we definitely, and that actually to me, like, is a huge part of directing, is just like telling vulnerable stories about yourself, because you're kind of like, it's like, if I'm going to ask these actors to be vulnerable with their souls on screen, then like the least I can do is kind of like try to in some way match that. yeah, and that, I mean, and we were constantly, I mean, just in general overall, you know, what I said starting out to, especially to Jasmine, but to some extent to everyone, all the actors, is, you know, that the words themselves are not precious. Like this scene structure should stay, and but like do as much basically improv as you can without messing up your scene partner, and like any kind of rephrasing should happen without asking for permission. Do it. If I hate it, then I'll tell you after, and we'll do another take where I'll say, let's do it as written. But so that was kind of just part of it. But then yeah, there was definitely some on-set rewriting happening where you would draw my attention to something that wasn't quite right, and often you were helping me to be just more concise. Like, because I do have a tendency to be overly wordy, like on the page and in life, I think.
I think I'm remembering one specific instance where we were at the house, the Connecticut house, and it was the scene with me and Tanya and Leon. We're talking about the schooling and what it's like to give a child with Down syndrome proper education and how much money that is. And there's like a monologue in there. And I remember having the hardest time just getting that out, because it's highly intelligent language. I mean, Jeremy is very smart, so it comes out that way, but it was literally like, okay, this thought leads to this thought and then this, but I'm also very angry. So I like have to rethink how this character is thinking about this thought. And so I think that's one that sticks out of my mind, is like, I had to sit with Jeremy and work out what was actually being said, so that I understood what the thought was and not just what the words were, but also that I understood why she was going so deeply into an intellectual debate when everything inside of her was like, you know, firing up. And then also keyed up something in me about Jess, you know.
Yeah. Okay. I think we got another question from the audience. Love the film. What's next? The question. What's next for you, Mr. Hersh?
I have two feature screenplays that I'm like starting to think about and write, just in the early stages of those, and a play that I've been working on for a while, and yeah. So those are but it's all just early stages of things.
Good. And Jasmine, what is anything exciting on your slate?
Well, there were a lot of exciting things before coronavirus came up, but then, you know, it shut everything down. Hopefully when we do come back, I can still recur on New Amsterdam. I love that. Hopefully one of the plays that was slated to happen will eventually happen again. But until then, honestly, I'm just protesting. I'm just hoping that we can find a better future for ourselves. And I'm just trying to stay Black and protect my magic. That's it.
Well, take care out there. Definitely. Lend your voice and lend your physicality and guard that soul.
Will do.
Well, thank you so much for this lovely movie. It takes a lot to make a movie. And it takes a lot to go from this is a thing on the page and I'm going to bring it to life, to bring in the right people to come and embody the character that you've been envisioning. It takes a lot to make that happen, not just in the technical and the production and the money, but also the heart and the soul. And both of you left it all on the floor for this one. So very well done. And thank you.
Thank you so much.
Steven.
I think that's all we have for us.
Can I say one thing?
Yes.
So on this coming Monday, the 22nd, I believe is the day. Yeah. We are doing a thing where all of the money that comes in for us and our distribution company, Monument, we're donating to an organization in Buffalo called Black Love Resists in the Rust, or BLRR. And it's a really cool organization that's very deserving. Do we have time for me to explain a little bit more about them?
You have 30 seconds.
Okay, great. So they, I'm just going to read this from their site because I figure that's the best way. We are named plaintiffs in a lawsuit against the city of Buffalo and their use of vehicular checkpoints, which unconstitutionally target communities of color and exacerbate their financial burdens through excessive ticketing, fines, and fees. So I wanted to just, you know, have it from their language. But yeah, they are, yeah, a really awesome organization, and we're excited to be. So if you have friends that haven't seen the film and you want to recommend it to them,
Monday,
maybe tell them to buy it on Monday. Yeah.
I'm gonna recommend it to them anyway, because this is definitely something to see. And well, thank you very much, Jasmine. Thank you very much, Jeremy. Thank you to NewFest. I nearly said Outfest. I'm getting a little loopy. NewFest from New York City. And congratulations again on the premiere of The Surrogate. And thank you, audience, for watching and for participating in the Q&A.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.